Have you ever found yourself saying something that you know you shouldn't? Or maybe something kind of mysterious or ambiguous, like a breadcrumb that you hope someone else picks up on? For me, it was the statement in the title of this video. You see, I was having a conversation with a coworker about their upcoming birthday, and was making some preparations for a little surprise. But as we were talking, she asked me when mine was, and after telling her, I followed it with, "But I don't really like my birthday or do anything special for it." Immediately after I said this, I felt very off. It felt like my stomach was turning inside out. I was physically uncomfortable. Not only did I lie about not doing anything special for my birthday, but I lied about not liking my birthday. Or at least at the time, I had convinced myself that my birthday was not worth celebrating. Or on a deeper level, I hated myself. Although this wasn't an explicit confession about my self-hatred, it certainly felt like it, and I realized just how long I discarded myself for, how long I practiced hating myself. It's like a culmination of events that I was unaware of, which shockingly led me to this moment and led me to utter these words. I couldn't help but wonder why. What made me start to think like this? What made me so guilt-ridden and hatred-infested that I would say something like this to a coworker? So today, I want to talk about some things that lead to this kind of self-hatred, and how you can actively start to plant the seeds that will one day grow into a healthier relationship with yourself and those around you. The first thing that I find that can eventually lead to self-hatred is being overly agreeable, humble, or always considering or looking out for the needs, wants of others over your own. Although humility is certainly a virtue in life, minimizing yourself so that you essentially don't exist or take up space in a room is not humility. Maybe you grew up around lots of conflict and acted as the middleman, always trying to consider and fix the problems your immediate friends and family had. Or maybe you wanted to avoid conflict by constantly agreeing with others and biting your tongue, even when you felt like you had something to say. Whichever the case, there's a certain type of person that consistently discards themselves out of guilt, a false sense of humility, or avoidance, and this ultimately leads to a self-hatred. If you're consistently not expressing yourself, and you spend your time walking around in other people's shoes, you will forget your own size and ultimately forget yourself. Eventually, after repeating this behavior and pattern too many times, you will render yourself worthless. And while this isn't an explicit form of hatred for yourself after you did something you might have deemed wrong, this kind of discarding of yourself manifests similarly than the other kinds I will talk about. If you relate to this humility or complete disregard for yourself, try every day to express an original or honest thought, even if you think it might be controversial. Practice overriding your subconscious desire to understand what someone else wants to hear when answering a question, and state boldly what you want on a small scale. This might look like when your friend asks you to eat somewhere, you actually suggest something you might like, and express yourself in an honest way as a means to get over this discarding that you've done for so long, and hopefully this will lead you back on the path of love. The second pathway that I find can eventually lead to self-hatred is ambition without mercy, a sort of constant self-criticism with impossible standards and treating yourself like a machine whose sole purpose is optimization. You see, ambition in itself is not a bad thing, of course. In fact, it is responsible for many of the things we admire in people. The problem arises when your worth becomes tied to your performance and achievements. Somewhere along the way, many people stop viewing ambition as something they possess and begin viewing it as the reason they deserve to exist. Maybe you grew up receiving praise primarily for what you accomplished rather than who you were. Maybe achievement became the thing that earned you attention, respect, or love. Or maybe you simply became obsessed with the idea of reaching your potential and slowly transformed your life into a never-ending self-improvement project, which seems to be the track that a lot of young people are going on these days. The issue with this is that there's no finish line. When your self-worth is attached to achievement, every accomplishment immediately loses its value the moment it's attained. The goalpost moves. You get the promotion at your job, you reach the target weight, and suddenly it isn't enough. You build the business, and now it has to be bigger. Every victory becomes evidence of what you should have done sooner, rather than something worth celebrating. And that's a big deal, the celebration part, you see, because over time, you begin speaking to yourself in ways you would never speak to another human being. Every mistake comes a character flaw. Every period of rest feels like laziness. Every setback becomes proof that you are falling behind. Eventually, you stop relating to yourself as a person and start relating to yourself as a machine that should always be producing more, improving faster, and wasting less time. But human beings are not machines. Machines can be optimized endlessly. Human beings require rest, meaning, relationships, enjoyment, and forgiveness. And when those human needs are treated as obstacles rather than necessities, self-hatred begins to emerge. Not because you explicitly hate yourself again, but because you've created standards that no human being can possibly satisfy, including yourself. If you relate to this pathway, try practicing achievement without attachment. Set goals, minimally, but deliberately separate the outcome from your worth. Allow yourself to celebrate progress, especially before immediately moving to the next target. Maybe like a birthday or a passage of time or something little that might seem mundane to you at the time. Practice celebrating this as a means to ward off this optimization process and remember some of the things that you may have forgotten. Notice when your internal dialogue sounds more like a drill sergeant than a friend. Most importantly, remind yourself that your value as a person existed before your accomplishments and will continue to exist after them. The third pathway I find that can eventually lead to self-hatred is living through comparison. Human beings naturally compare, of course. It's the way we differentiate between things. We figure out what we aspire, what we like, what we don't like, and what we want to become. It's just one of the ways we make sense of the world. The problem is that comparison was never meant to become the lens through which we evaluate our entire existence. Today it's easier than ever to spend your life measuring against other people. Of course, we're exposed to so many other people's lives, what they're doing, how they're feeling, what they're thinking. Their careers, relationships, intelligence, experience, and achievements are constantly visible. And if you're not careful, you begin to unconsciously build your identity around where you rank relative to everyone else. Maybe every time you accomplish something, your first instinct is to look for someone who has done more. Maybe every compliment is immediately neutralized by the thought that someone else is better. Maybe no matter how much progress you make, you feel behind because there's always another person who appears more successful. The trap of comparison is that it makes satisfaction impossible. When you compare upward, you feel inadequate. When you compare downward, you feel temporarily superior. Neither creates peace because both require other people to determine how you feel about yourself. Eventually, your attention shifts away from your own life entirely. Instead of asking whether you are becoming the person you want to be, you begin asking whether you are doing better than someone else. And that is a game you'll never win. There will always be someone richer, smarter, more attractive, more talented, or further ahead in some area of life. So don't depend your self-worth on this, or else it'll be as fragile as straws. It's like building a house on a very unstable foundation. The deepest consequence of a comparison, perhaps, is that it prevents gratitude in your own life. In the same way that self-hatred stops us from celebrating the little things, you become so focused on what you lack that you lose the ability to appreciate what you have. Your achievements feel smaller, your strengths feel insignificant, and your uniqueness disappears beneath endless measurements. And if you relate to this pathway, I think practicing redirecting your comparison inward or to past versions of yourself and what the future self wants to be is a little healthier. Pay attention to your own growth rather than someone else's highlight reel. The goal is not to stop noticing other people altogether, but to stop using them as the ruler by which you measure your worth. And so, overall, looking back on my own story, when I told my coworker that I didn't like my birthday, I thought I was making a harmless comment. But what I was really saying was that I didn't think I was worth celebrating. And the scary thing is that I didn't arrive at that belief overnight. I arrived there through years of discarding myself for other people, years of tying my worth to achievements, and years of measuring myself against everyone around me. Remember, self-hatred rarely appears all at once. It grows quietly through the ways we relate to ourselves every day. And so knowing this, it's best to cater daily practices towards love. Especially for those out there who have noticed these little practices or these little slips of self-hatred. Please don't take this lightly. You deserve to be loved just as much as the next guy. And it might start with these little movements and recognitions of what caused you to get to this point. And if you made it this far in the video, Thank you so much for watching. I hope you took something valuable from this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Please consider subscribing if you want to support the channel, and yeah, I wish you all the best.